liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Matthey.
Here.
Alderman Sage.
Here.
Alderman Milawamwe.
Here.
Alderman Burgess.
Here.
Alderman Painter.
Here.
Alderman Schmidt.
Here.
Alderman Black.
Here.
Alderman Howman. Here. Alderman Bray.
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and start with recognitions and appointments. And Madam Clerk, do you have the actual physical proclamation for Lucy Sanchez? Okay. Well, I know she's in the audience, and she can come forward, and I can read the proclamation, and we will be sure to get it to her. Lucy, would you please come forward? Thank you. Come on over. Yeah, once you come on up, too. Yeah, of course. This is your public body. Thank you. Nice tie, too. Especially if you give me your tie, you can come up. Okay. Proclamation recognition of Lucy Sanchez. Whereas we are here to celebrate the recent achievements of Lucy Sanchez, a 2017 graduating senior from Illinois Wesleyan University, and whereas in the senior juried student art exhibitions, one of Lucy's works was awarded the CLA Social Sciences Art Purchase Award. Lucy's award-winning art will hang in an academic building on campus, and whereas Lucy will be sharing her artwork with the city of Bloomington, and whereas the city is honored to have such beautiful pieces of art that reflect Lucy's perseverance and determination while attending Illinois Wesleyan University, and whereas I, Terry Renner, Mayor of the city of Bloomington, do hereby deem it an honor and a pleasure to extend this proclamation to Lucy Sanchez with sincere congratulations. Therefore, in witness, I do set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Bloomington to be affixed on this 22nd day of May, 2017. Congratulations, Lucy, and thank you so much for all you've done. Thanks. And we will get you the proclamation. Okay. Promise. Thank you. Thanks so much. And actually, the day a week ago today, Lucy and I had lunch in honor of this. And in that morning, I didn't realize Greg Shaw in our department had come in and had your painting, and he and I were trying to stretch it onto a canvas or a wooden structure that he made. But anyway, it was absolutely beautiful. And people walking by thought that it was. You're extremely talented. Thank you, Lucy. Next, we have recognition of Cub Pack 3905 Weblos, fifth graders from Pepper Ridge Elementary on completing their Aero Light Badge. And I bet I know who in the audience is there. Come on forward. What do you call it? Oh, Webelos. Oh, okay. When I was a kid, that's what we called it. I'm missing that one. And come on up as well.
Mayor,
Come on.
I don't
Yes.
think it was a proclamation. I think it was just a recognition that they were in the audience today.
It was just a recognition?
Yes.
Okay, rather than a proclamation.
Mm-hmm.
And come on up, come on. And once you take a picture, if you want to take a picture. And what's your name? Jack? Jack? Awesome, good. You guys look great. And do we have somebody who could take a picture? Awesome. Awesome, here we go. And then you can take it home. No rabbiters behind it.
Not today.
Cheeseburger. Steak guy.
Cheeseburger. You've got us to do your bidding, Sue. Okay, thank you. Thanks again, guys. Oh my gosh.
I'm fine. I'm not contagious.
Okay. Appointment of Robert Bradley to the Citizens Beautification Committee. Robert, not a stranger to our community. Would you please stand up and be recognized? Thank you for your willingness to serve. Reappointment of Erica Larkin to the Citizens Beautification Committee. Erica? Thank you. Appointment of Ronald Crick to the Cultural District Commission. Ron? Reappointment of Loretta Delgado to the Cultural District Commission. Loretta? She's not here. Okay. Then we have reappointment of Tom Whalen to the Fire and Police Commissioner. I don't see Tom. And then we have reappointment of Nicole Klebeck and Ryan Scritchlow to the Planning Commission. Thank you. Okay. At this point, we have public comment listed, but in something that has got to be 4 or 5 standard deviations, if not more, from the mean, we have nobody who wants to address us at public comment. That's why I fell over here, simulating a heart attack. Okay. Now we're going to move on to our consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone would like to have removed from the consent agenda?
Sure.
Only
Let me find it.
Okay.
It will be item H and item J.
Ooh, creating the suspense.
That's right.
Item 7, H, and item 7, K. Okay.
There you go.
J, I'm sorry,
J,
I said,
J.
I circled J, said K. All right, once again, you got to keep me honest. It's hard. Okay, Alderwoman Burgess.
Just so you know, I'll be recusing myself from 7H.
You're going to accuse yourself from 7H?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Note of a recusal. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the exceptions of item 7H and 7J?
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman Hellman, second by Alderwoman Schmidt. If everyone would go ahead and vote then. Okay. The motion is approved, 9-0. There are no nays to announce. Madam Clerk, we will go ahead and move on. Alderman Milwambwe, you wanted to vote on, or to separately consider item 7H, and you wanted to
Right.
recuse yourself. Alderwoman Burgess, okay?
Yep. So 7H, I just pulled it so I could vote no, just to be consistent with my prior vote concerning
Okay.
the project.
And this is the Exton Apartments, and just so that
Right.
everybody knows, this had been approved, but this is just the final plat.
Final plat, right.
On this, okay? Is there a motion either to approve or to disapprove of this item then so that we can vote on it?
I'll make a motion to approve it as presented.
Moved by Alderwoman Schmidt. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Black. Okay. At this point, unless there's discussion, we'll go ahead and vote. To everyone's surprise, the motion carries 7-1. The nay to announce, Madam Clerk, is?
Alderman Milwamwe.
Okay, great. We're back. Okay. Clear and move. Sorry. Now we move on to item 7J, Alderman Milwambwe.
Right, and this one, because GLT is a unit of Illinois State University, I'm recusing myself as well.
Okay, already. Thank you. Is there, is there a motion to approve this as presented? Your light's on.
I know.
Oh.
I have a question.
I'll make a motion to approve it, Mayor.
Moved by Alderwoman Schmidt, second by Alderman
Sure.
Black. Okay.
I have a question, though, about
sure.
this. I'm glad he pulled it.
Okay.
You know, I remember going to this last year, and there was some concern about there were a couple food carts that were kind of located at the periphery of the event. Are those still in effect for the concert, or are they not in effect for
Does
this one
anybody know
event?
staff, or is there, I don't know if there's anyone here from GLT.
Yeah, I could address that. We don't know whether they'll be there or not, but they were outside of the area, and there had been some complaint about that from WGLT, but in talking with both our code enforcement officers and the police officer, they had every right to be there, and they had the appropriate permits. WGLT didn't like them being there because they weren't part of WGLT, but they can still be there, and they're permitted, and there's no problem with it.
Okay. I just remember people were kind of hopping over the ropes to get over to the food cart, and it was creating a kind of a traffic jam of people. So if there's no problem, there's no problem.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yeah.
I went back, and I probably missed it. Did this come before the Liquor Commission?
Mhm.
Okay, I missed it. Usually there's a mention in the...
Oh, and there's not even mentioned in that packet, because I've seen it so many times, I didn't even take a look.
Yeah,
But
no,
yes, it did.
it's not in
Yeah.
there, so I was just,
Yeah.
I didn't remember.
Okay, all right. At this point, an aye vote is in favor of the license for the WGLT outdoor concert as presented. Motion carries 8-0. Someone can bring in Alderman Milwambwe. Now, we're going to, was really close. It's too bad you weren't here. Okay. We thought for sick amusement. Anyway, I'm going to call the public hearing to order on the annexation agreement by Vale Church for approximately 36.13 acres south of Ireland Grove Road, east of Brookstone Circle. And we have a brief presentation, and this actually, just so that the audience understands, we will take public comment if you're interested in commenting on item 8A, that is this public hearing of annexation agreement for Vale Church. The items on the regular agenda, items 9A, 9B, and 9C, are all in line with this, and I think, as I understand, we're really wrapping all of your presentations into this one right now. Tom, is that right?
I would appreciate doing that.
Okay,
instead
we
of
would, I'm
repeating
sure we'd
4
expeditious
times.
as possible.
Yes.
Hit it, Tom.
Appreciate that very much. Mayor and Council, this is several items, yes, the annexation agreement, rezoning to S2, which is public lands and institutions, for the property that's shown in yellow, outlined in yellow. First is the public hearing, submitted by Vale Church for approximately 36 acres, south of Ireland Grove, and east of Brookstone Circle. And as was mentioned, we've got several items, and I am rolling them all together. I might jump around just a little bit. For the record, I want to state this clearly, that all the required notices were mailed out. The legal ads were published. So everything is in good shape there. Planning Commission also heard this case on April 26th, and everything was in order there too. Just wanted to get that on the record. Vale Church...
If you could just clarify, what was the vote on the Planning Commission?
Boy, you really want me to speed
Oh,
up.
no, it was unanimous. I'm sorry, it wasn't a trick
At the
question.
very end,
I
it's
just wanted that to be
7-0.
7-0. Sorry. I didn't mean that to be a trick question.
I might
Sorry.
repeat that later on because I was thrown off now.
And then we got Ryan in the audience there too, so he could clarify. Yeah, I know. I just wanted it because this is a public hearing. Yeah.
So Vale Church has acquired this land. They currently are located on Morrissey Drive and have an average attendance of about 400 people at 2 gatherings weekly. They are looking for a new facility that will allow them to serve their 1,600 members. There's just a little bit of a close-up of the area that we're looking at. You can see the residential that's to the west and to the north. Vacant. It's currently a vacant property. To the east is also vacant. Our comprehensive plan has that as the area to the east targeted for commercial development. A church seems like a logical transition between residential and something that's a little bit more intense in terms of commercial development. Here is the zoning shown for the same area. Again, the subject property highlighted in the yellow rectangle. This is a fairly diagrammatic explanation of the site plan. There's an entrance that's planned in Phase 1 for across from Ballyshannon Drive. Phase 1 is largely just the sanctuary and the parking and some child care for while they're in place or while services are going on. Phase 2 would be an expansion of the same set of uses. There's a property to the south. We're asking that they reserve this some kind of stretch of area so that we can assure access. There are utilities on the southern end of that property as well as a future extension of Constitution Trail. They have no plans for that property right now. They do own it. But there's nothing planned in terms of their phasing of the development. Detention is at the north end. That is required. The annexation agreement establishes deadlines for the developer's obligation to do things like construct a sidewalk along the north side of the property, along Ireland Grove Road. There is a dormant, and we've been doing this with all of these lately, there's a dormant special services area also proposed to be over the property as part of the annexation agreement to provide for these on-site kinds of public improvements should they not be carried out. And we can institute a special service area, collect the money, and pay for the city to do it. There are links to the comprehensive plan here. That is a colored site plan, kind of roughly drawn site plan. There are links to the comprehensive plan in terms of creating opportunities for social engagement and interaction, strengthening of social networks, which is really the role of one of the roles of the churches. It's also a Tier 2 infill development priority. The land is contiguous to the city, immediately contiguous, and utilities are also available on site. With that, be happy to try to answer any questions. Again, by the way, the Planning Commission met April 26th and voted 7-0.
I just wanted, I know it's on there, just for the verbal record, because it's a public hearing.
So the recommendation is in favor of the annexation agreement, the rezoning to S2, and the petition for the expedited final plat.
Okay. Right, at this point, questions? All right. If you'll have a seat, though, in case we have audience.
Mayor, I'm sorry, I have one.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
So the existing church, do we have any idea or plans of what's going to happen with that facility once they move? I mean, has that even been talked about at all yet? I'm just curious.
That wasn't part of this proposal. I'm not sure if they're selling it or not.
Okay. I was just curious because it's, Morris Avenue in Ward 1, and it's a nice building. They just remodeled it a few years ago, so it's really nice. I'm just curious what's going to happen with it, so.
If you'll have a seat, just in case that some people have questions. Is there anyone who would like to speak at the public hearing? You would have up to 3 minutes on this. Okay. Seeing none, any other comments? I'm going to declare the public hearing closed, and we're going to go ahead and move on to our regular agenda. And in discussions with Mr. Juergens, he did say as long as there was no objection, we could handle items 9A, B, and C as part of one motion, because it wouldn't probably make much logical sense to vote one and not the other. Does anyone have any objections to considering item 9A, B, and C together? Is there a motion to approve items 9A, B, and C?
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman Painter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Howman. Any discussion? Further discussion? Questions? Okay. Seeing none, go ahead and vote. The motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. And we move right along to item 9D, consideration of an ordinance amending Chapters 2 and 29 of the Bloomington Municipal Code for a Transportation Committee, TAC. And we have a brief presentation by Jeff Juergens. And I'm sure Alderwoman Burgess is about ready to sing, "I Have Overcome."
I will not be singing tonight. I just wanted to give you a couple of the quick changes from the last time we presented this. First, the effective date. We have added in here that this would be effective. The commission wouldn't be in place upon their appointment. So until that time, we would continue to operate kind of under the old system if there needed to be approvals, although we don't anticipate it would take a long time to make those appointments. We did want to make that clarification. Under Section 300, we took out and everywhere within the ordinance advisory. So before it said Transportation Advisory Commission, now it's just Transportation Commission. We did add under Section 300, the transportation shall consist of and advising on policy level matters. So we kind of added advising in there. It's in the ordinance a couple other times, but just again to make sure that the role is clear in here. Under Section 301.4, there was a question or comments at the last meeting about whether or not the chairman of the commission should be able to add agenda items, and we did remove that from this, so now it is just essentially staff and the elected officials that would have a process to add things. We also added that the recommendations might not just go to the council, they might go to other commissions, as was discussed at the last meeting. We added under section 304.3 that they can make recommendations on complaints that are received. Again, just adding that in there for clarification purposes. And then finally, in section 305, we added in there that as to the staff that would be designated, that the city manager would designate that staff based on the issue before the Transportation Commission, but we specify that could include but not be limited to community development, economic development, public works, police, and fire. So we put a little bit more background and information in there as well on the staff that are to be involved. So with that, I'd answer any questions you might have.
Questions of Mr. Jurgen? Alderman Sage.
Thank you. So Jeff, I want to clarify a little bit further on 301, number 4, because I want to make sure I understand the phrasing there that says, but not limited to. So there are a number of staff positions outlined there, and it also includes the mayor and city council members may request. When it says, but not limited to, what is the significance of that? Are there other positions or other roles that, besides those that are enumerated there, that could submit agenda items?
To be honest, I am not 100% sure what was intended there, other than what we have intended previously was that if the city manager kind of designated somebody as a certain area, but I'm not sure why we have included that phrasing there, to be perfectly honest with you.
Okay.
And I'm not sure it's necessary. I don't know if others have any insight on that or not, but I think we could be fine with just leaving it as the enumerated individuals in that.
As enumerated?
Strike, but not limited to. If everybody...
I'm just asking.
Yep.
So.
I don't think there's a answer to that.
Okay. The other thing I want to be sure, because, and I appreciate the revision of that, and I just want to make sure that that has been completely resolved in my mind, and I think we do with the removal of that phrase. Right below that, Jeff, in section 302, I think one of the other major concerns I had, so there were a couple of concerns. One of those being that when we say that, when it says that all transportation matters concerning in that statement there, I don't need to read it. Again, my concern is that to this point, we have used a staff-driven approach to things that would come to boards and commissions. And I know that there was comment made that the cultural district may do some things differently. But I guess I want to be sure I understand that with something related to public safety, why I guess I'm trying to understand the rationale for the access point not coming through professional staff first, as opposed to first coming to the commission. I mean, that to me, that's almost analogous of the planning commission. An annexation agreement would come to the planning commission before it was reviewed by staff. So maybe I'm misunderstanding or misinterpreting that. So I want to be sure that I'm clear on that. There would be no staff touch points initially. This would come to the Traffic Advisory Commission.
And I'm not sure that's what that intends. I think the intention there is that before there's a policy decision on something like that, it'll come first before the commission and then go to the council. But I'm not sure that's to say that there wouldn't be staff people who are working with the commission that would be involved if something gets filed, a petition gets filed, just like it does, like you say, with the Zoning Board of Appeals or Planning Commission. So I don't want to speak for any of the elected officials or the other staff that have been working on this, but I'm not sure the intent is that, they file a petition and that nobody sees it before, it's presented at the commission hearing, so to speak.
Yeah, and again, this is a matter, for me, it's a matter of public safety. And so I want to just be sure I understand the process here, because I've made assumptions on some other times, when I should have been more clear in my questioning and understanding, and that's what I'm going to do here now. So this is the ordinance, right? So we need some clarity around what the process is going to be. And so if the process is that the entry point, the access point will be the commission, and then you can't really clearly see here what the process is, that suggests to me that there's no touch point with staff first, no review, nothing else, as there would be, say, with the zoning board of appeals or the planning commission or any of our other boards and commissions.
And I'm not,
Maybe Amelia can help me. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that if you look at the ordinance on the whole, what the goal here is to create something similar to zoning or planning, where it goes to staff first. There's an application or a process to get it on the agenda, and then it goes to that commission along with a recommendation of staff, which is discussed specifically in that paragraph, that any decisions are non-binding, but have to be made in consideration with law, safety standards, which includes the city safety standards, and the recommendation of the traffic engineer. So I think I appreciate the opportunity to clarify, but I believe the goal definitely is that this is reviewed by staff first, is put together in a packet so that the commission has the information they need from which to base a decision or recommendation, and then and only then is it presented to them.
And I appreciate that. I think, or I appreciate the goal of it is what the ordinance says is all transportation matters concerning the placement, removal, or change of traffic signs, traffic signals, parking zones, bicycle routes, sidewalks, or related traffic matter, which I'm not sure what that is, shall first go to the Transportation Commission for consideration and review. I don't see any reference there to first contact with staff.
Well,
That's what I guess.
it comes later in the paragraph and later in the ordinance. This would be a simple, I suppose if you want to make a quick amendment, I suppose we could say for consideration and review prior to final consideration by the city council, to clarify that their role is to deal with these issues before city council, not before staff.
And you said that's stated somewhere else. I've just overlooked it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the very next sentence. It says all such reviews shall be non-binding and made in consideration with the recommendation of the traffic engineer. That to me implies that the traffic engineer is involved in that process from the first point, as well as then there is an entire section on assistance and cooperation from city officers.
Okay.
And again, that goal is to make sure that the commission has that expertise to rely on and is not out there on their own trying to make decisions.
and I think that staff's understanding or thinking behind this is that those, much like planning and zoning, those petitions, those requests would be funneled through staff. They'd be put on the agenda through staff. Recommendations would be coming up. I know one of the things that City Manager Hales, I think, said the last time we discussed this, this is kind of a framework that we might have to come back and put some more provisions in, fine-tune as we go along. But as long as staff has that same understanding and the council, is okay with that, I think, we'll be all right there. But we could certainly clear that up a little bit too if the council desires.
Well, and I would appreciate that because again, one of my other comments when we talked about this during the committee of the whole was, my understanding was when we left the committee of the whole meeting in January, my understanding was, based on council comment, that we were going back to open up the stack process for more transparency and allow more public comment. That was my understanding then. What came back was not that. What came back was a complete overhaul and a new commission. So forgive me if I'm not totally clear in my mind what the understanding is versus what the wording says of the ordinance. And so I'd appreciate, maybe not you, I don't know who that would be, but I'd like some additional, specific wording laid out there to avoid misunderstandings.
Alderwoman Pater.
In our last budget, we budgeted for a traffic engineer. I just wondered if we'd made any progress in finding one.
Steve, do you know?
I think that process is ongoing. Jim Karch?
Thank you for asking. Yes, it actually has gone out for a bid. It's been on our city website. It's gone in the APWA, Black Engineers, Women Engineers Associations, really trying to get a broad base, good pool for us to find some selection. That process is closed. We are looking to do some interviews, so we're thankful, wanting to move this forward. Hopefully the timing will coincide with some of what we're doing with the Transportation Commission.
Okay, now, is this a full-time position or is it a consultant?
It's a full-time position that was budgeted in the current budget. So what the city manager has asked for us to do is to look at any supplemental type services that might be needed. So a full-time person, there might be some other additional services that are needed beyond what this person can provide. That's where we'd look to have that, kind of go out for a consultant. And we currently have some contracts that the city has underway that we can utilize.
Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman Hammond.
Are we in council discussion, or are we
Yeah,
still?
we technically are out of time, but we can continue. Go ahead.
I didn't know if we were, anyhow, similar to David, for me, roads are public safety, and I don't feel that ordinary citizens such as myself are adequately equipped to make these decisions. Section 301(1), people on the commission would have demonstrated interest, knowledge, or experience in traffic management or transportation. Whoa. So I'm just question finding people that are qualified. We have qualified staff. We do hold public hearings about roads and speed limits when they come up. We have several master plans that impact our roads already. And finally, I've had several people contact me, and none have been positive about this particular commission.
Alderman Sage.
And thank you. I didn't realize that I had yielded back to the floor. I'd ask a question for some clarification on whether or not staff would be the first touch point, as Jeff has suggested, or if the wording as stated in the ordinance, which says the commission shall be the first point of contact. And then I'm not sure how staff comes into that. It's not clearly spelled out in the ordinance. So I'm wondering if I can get some understanding. I don't know who that would be, Amelia or Jeff or somebody. Is when will staff touch this? Will staff review it prior to coming to the Traffic Commission?
I think but we just said that, yeah.
That's what was said, Mayor. That's not what the ordinance says in that first sentence. It says it will first go to the Traffic Commission. So that's why, again, I'm going to be much more diligent going forward in making sure that I get answers to my questions and that there's clear communication to the staff on what council direction is. So Jeff, is that what we've said here? I mean, is that sufficient from an ordinance perspective?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we might want to say after filing with the traffic engineer, all transportation matters, blah, 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 and to make that even clearer if we desire, because I think that the vision is the traffic engineer will be the staff person that is, the touch point for all of this.
Sure.
And is there a commission that staff doesn't prepare documents? I mean, including the Liquor Commission.
None that I'm aware of. The point is some of this is going to be, in talking with the city manager, some of this we are going to be working through. It's a fair question because we haven't had this before. And so from what staff we've been talking about is some of our intention would be it should funnel through staff. It's similar to the Planning Commission. This should funnel through staff to provide that recommendation to the Transportation Commission, and in turn then that advisory board gives that to the council. There needs to be a mechanism and a process that citizens can do that. The other thing we've talked about that we think needs to be flushed out, and we're going to continue to work with the city manager and assistant city manager on, is every single handicap sign, every single little issue, we really think that would be very cumbersome. What we are looking for are policies. What we're looking for are high-level sort of, kind of direction for staff to implement. But we're going to continue to work on to make sure we've got that clearly spelled out. We think that process can be helpful. We want this to be a benefit, not a burden, and so that's where we think if we've got clarity on policy direction, we can be effective in what we do.
Thank you.
Alderman Black.
Thank you. And thank you for all those answers. When I originally read through this, I did not read it the same way that Alderman Sage did, but now I understand what he's saying. And having sat up here for some time, I know that we have some folks that will read the letter and will want the commission to do certain things that perhaps we didn't intend it. So even if we have this conversation, it still may not play out the way we want it to do. I've seen versions in other municipalities for similar types of commissions, but also different ones where they do things where, like, suppose, let me just play out a scenario here, that there's a neighborhood, they want to lower their speed limit, they pass around petitions, they don't tell anybody they're doing it, get their signatures, they get 150. They show up to a transportation committee meeting and they present the petition and say, what are you going to do about it? Nobody's reviewed it. And so I've seen mechanisms in some of these ordinances and commissions where the commission can formally receive the information and then refer it to staff. And I wonder if that would speak to the concern that Alderman Sage is raising, but also perhaps, I'm not saying satisfy, but at least address the concern that hypothetical citizen would have in that scenario. So do we need to rewrite the ordinance, or would that be something that's the rules?
I mean, if it's not on the agenda, it can't be considered by that body. Correct?
right.
Is that correct, Jeff?
That's
so,
right.
I mean, there is no scenario under our current system and the Open Meetings Act where someone could come to a meeting, say, consider this now, and where the commission would be empowered to do that. It would always have to be set at some point in time on a future agenda, given the opportunity for that staff overview. Again, that's the goal here, and I appreciate the clarification from Mr. Karch that we're looking at policy level issues here, not engineering specifications, not those little details that council would never be involved in. We're looking for those bigger policy level issues that council will be asked to engage in. And this will give us another mechanism to make sure that before we engage in that conversation, there has been adequate public comment and adequate opportunity for public involvement and a public vetting of those ideas. Because the one thing I think we've run into recently is that we get these items coming to council and there's a very clear concern from the public that they have not had the opportunity to fully vet it, that they're being caught off guard or by surprise. This allows us to say that there is a consistent, steady mechanism. You don't have to be on the lookout for special meetings, but there is a consistent mechanism by which you can be engaged in these conversations.
Okay. Yeah. So in the scenario that I'm throwing out there, and the way that I'm reading this, I guess you could have someone that's an irate citizen that states that they were told that, that would be considered at that meeting, but you're correct in the open meetings. I didn't even think of that piece. But the frustration that I hear from people about these types of issues is that they don't know where to turn, and I hope that the chairman of this commission would be empowered to at least have that conversation, in a formal manner. And I've heard nothing but positive comments, but I know that we have a wide variety of citizens that weigh in on these issues, which is a good thing. But I just wanted that to be known that while there's some concerns, we got to work through some of these challenges. I think it's a good thing for overall.
I think the main thing, certainly in the interactions that I've had, there have been a couple people, I think maybe one even just before public comment, not public comment, we didn't have it today, sorry, before the mayor's open house, once it was explained, you're not making engineering decisions. This is basically a move toward more open government, more participation. It's more clearly understood. Alderwoman Schmidt, sorry.
So a process might be that right now a citizen fills out the stack form that's on the web and sends it in. Correct? So you might utilize that form or some modified version of that.
That's correct. Again, it's the way that some of the wording was, we wanted as a staff level as well, of making sure that, every single decision, that's why we like that level, that policy level kind of discussion is where it needs to be. We still think there's a lot of benefit, Alderman Schmidt, just like you said, and somebody being able to say, hey, I need a handicap spot in front of my house. I use that as an example that if it complies with the policy we've done, that shouldn't go through a larger process. Let's just get that done. That becomes cumbersome. It becomes unnecessary. We should be responsive when we can and when we can be. And so I think there should be a standard form that people can still fill out. And then if it is not in compliance with a policy that we have and the person then does not agree with it, that's a wonderful thing for a transportation commission if they choose to take up that as a policy issue.
So, again, thinking about what I've heard up here, there's some pretty specific language. It starts out saying on 302, all transportation matters concerning the placement, removal, or change of traffic signs. So a handicap sign, handicap spot, is that?
This
Is
is
that
some
in?
of,
Is
this
it
is
out?
where City Manager Hales and I have been talking about that because that language we wondered about that as a staff. We hoped that would not mean that every single one, we think that'd be a burden to our citizens as opposed to the benefit of what the intention
I would
was.
totally agree.
And so we think we were hoping that the implementation of this would be as I've publicly stated. In seeing head nods, I'm hoping that is your elected body also interpretation of the language.
So, and maybe this is a Jeff Durgan's question, do we have a process language in any of our other ordinances for boards and commissions that maybe could be inserted in this to help clarify and shape it?
Yeah, certainly. We could look at that and see if there's some additional language, and I could work with Tom, who works with a lot of our boards and commissions as well, to see if he has some recommendations for what that language might be.
Because that just may clear up some of the questions we have here. And then on section 304.2, I had asked last time about the downtown parking commission, whatever it is. I noticed in here that now the downtown master plan is part of some of the plans that can be considered, and I didn't know whether I had convinced anybody that maybe we don't need a downtown traffic committee, or am I just wishfully reading here?
That may have just been something, I mean, we can certainly add that. I'm not sure.
But I think that David Hales said it was kind of that might be something coming along. I just didn't know whether this was in direct response to that or not.
I don't think so.
Much of the downtown traffic, that discussion about downtown traffic is still at a staff level. It includes some stakeholders, includes some other stakeholders, but there might be, I think where City Manager Hills was kind of responding back to that is there's still some benefit. We don't want to take away the ability for us on that the lowest level to get the work done is still beneficial. We can get things done quicker. So what I think his point in responding to that is if we find it to be cumbersome or we're not maybe able to make policy level decisions, those can still go to the transportation commission, but it's one of those to where we don't want to take away that dialogue. I think a lot of the stakeholders in the downtown appreciate the ability to maybe get some things done quickly. And so we don't want to remove that, but we want to still allow that mechanism that they can still submit issues if there's questions through that same process. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Very good.
So, thank you. So Jim, I think you verbalized better. Again, my concern was section 302, and that is on things that I'm assuming some part of them, whether it's placement, removal, change of signs, traffic signals, parking zones. I guess that doesn't suggest that staff can deal with that at the lowest level, the most efficient and the most effective level. What the ordinance reads is those will all come to the commission, and so those seem to be the principle of trying to handle things at a low cost level in the organization, engaging perhaps the people with the least amount of time that probably don't need to be involved with placement of a sign. I'm trying to figure out how that's efficient and effective coming through the commission. Now, and again, I understand we have an implementation plan and understandings are in place. I'm going by what the ordinance says, and that's not what the ordinance says.
Flexibility based on this, or do they need to come back and modify it? No, as Mr. Carter was saying, as along with what you're talking about, that's the kind of thing that we would probably want to remove out there or modify, because as you said, that's currently what the ordinance would require. Now, conceivably, the commission, could adopt a policy or something, and this council eventually a policy kind of, setting certain regulations or exempting certain things. But certainly another way to approach that would be to come back with some, revised language, scratch, some of those things out. When we talked about this last time, we tried to get feedback, see what people's comments were, and made some changes based on that. And we could certainly try and make some additional changes and some modifications based on the comments.
Can I make it? If I could, I hate to do this on the floor, but if I could make the recommendation, we could very easily, you could table this until date certain June 13th, June 12th, excuse me, I think is the next meeting. Take action on it on that night. Staff could make the tweaks. We could actually even prepare the form that could go online for the review so that council could see that and maybe even kind of better define that. I think that would help everybody involved so that process would be clearer. So it's clear that we can still get things done at lowest level. We can then be the most responsive and still allow those high-level policy decisions to be filtered through the Transportation Commission and onto council, but that would be for your action to take.
Yeah, just as I'm going back through it, again, just the first sentence, section 300 says this, there is hereby established a transportation committee to assist, inform, and advise administrative and elected officials of the city on matters pertaining to the transportation of people and materials in the city. The primary areas of focus of the Transportation Commission, says focus, shall consist of advising on policy level matters involving streets and highways. It seems like that to me is 500 feet. I don't think it says I want a handicap spot in front of my house and you have to go to the TAC. I don't know. Burgess and then Milwaukee.
Yeah, no, I think that if we're going to be making a significant change, as this is, we should be comfortable with the language. And I think it's fine to clarify that. And, as impatient as I can be, I think it would be best at this point in time, because I think these are good concerns, to work on the language a little bit more. Sounds like what we need to do is make sure that the staff versus the commission roles are clear. And I would also suggest, if we're going to open this up, that I think one thing that's missing from here that would be useful is a line saying that nothing will prevent the city from taking immediate action in the interest of public safety. Because that's another area I think we all conceptually understand that if there's a public safety issue that needs to be rectified, we're not waiting for a meeting. But if we're going to change language, let's go ahead and put that in there as well. And hopefully Alderman Sage can perhaps provide a little bit of feedback to Jeff and Jim about what kind of clarity you're looking for. And so hopefully we can get it back to council. What did you say, June
13th?
June 12th? Do we need a formal motion for that?
Yes.
Okay, so I would make a motion that we table this until date certain June 12th to clarify the language on responsibility.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Black. And then we have Alderman Milwaukee and Sage.
Okay. Well, the question I had for you, Jim, and the staff in general is, because this seems like a pretty significant change, I'm always concerned about the administrative side of things. How is the staff going to be able? Right. So how is the staff going to be able to handle this? Is that going to require more staffing for you, or are there things that we will not be able to do because of this? I'm just curious of all the behind-the-scenes stuff that will happen. I mean, this is nice, for us to look at, but I know it takes a lot of work to bring all these things forward.
It's tough to say. What I will thank the council for is you have done what we as a staff would ask. If you asked to add something to us, you provided the resources, we hope. The traffic engineer that you approved as part of this budget will be the critical point person for this commission. And so we are hopeful that that will give us the resources to be able to accomplish this. So, we'll find out. My guess is when you first put in a commission, there's going to be a lot of upfront work. A lot of people are going to be excited about tackling some things meetings, and so we'll try to get as much done as we can quickly. And so the concern will be some patience in the very beginning, so we can maybe stretch out and prioritize what we want to pick first as far as policies. But then, as with anything, over time, you hope those level out and you kind of have some general policy level direction. But a fair question. I think by filling the traffic engineer role that's budgeted, I'm going to say now that we're going to be okay whenever we get that completed. We'll hopefully find the right person and move that forward.
Alderman Sage and Black.
I think Scott had checked in. He was on first.
Okay, but, and if we're going to go beyond this, I've taken leave of giving us like an extra 20 minutes here, so Alderman Black.
We're going back to make some changes. I'd like to suggest that 3043, I don't like the word complaints, concerns.
Scott, I didn't hear what you said, Scott.
Yeah. 304C, I don't really care for the word complaints. I prefer the word concerns.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Okay.
As long as we're making changes.
So to that point, thank you, Scott. So Jeff, again, I'm going to be, I want to make sure that I don't create yet another opportunity for my misunderstanding in terms of what the council is suggesting for feedback for staff. So could we outline specifically what you think you've heard from the council to make changes to, and I will help you a little bit. I mean, I think we're going to rework, possibly even, well, I'll just say rework section 302, that first sentence, okay? In section 301, item 4, this idea of but not limited to, so the roles, the people who can access and in effect direct public safety policy are clearly enumerated in there. We have some relation to how the process is going to work with staff first, those first contact points being through staff as they are, as I suggested, through the ZBA planning commission or two that come to mind. I think those are the ones that I touched on. I think Scott mentioned one. I think Amelia mentioned one about related to fast action on public safety, or this idea of pushing it down in the organization. Is that everything that you think you've heard, Jeff?
That's all I had in my notes.
Okay, all right.
You good?
Thank you.
Okay. At this point, there is a motion on the floor and a second, and this is to delay this till the 12th of June. Was that correct? Okay. Okay. The motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay. We're going on to our last item on our agenda for this evening. If I get back to my agenda. And that's item E, consideration of a resolution to approve the City of Bloomington submission to the McLean County Regional Planning Commission for the fiscal year 2018-2022 Transportation Improvement Program for the Bloomington Normal Urbanized Area. And we have a brief presentation by Mr. Karch and then 10-minute council discussion. Thank you.
Hopefully this can be very brief. We'd like to be able to beat the record here for a little while. So tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Plan program that we have. This is something that happens every year through McLean County Regional Planning. They are our partner. They're the vehicle and the arm by which we submit this. It is in compliance with a litany of federal requirements that are listed in the packet and then also on their website. But this is something to where it is in compliance with our already passed budget. This is putting out there what the council has approved in next year's budget and in some of the out years. It's fiscally constrained. It's just putting out there of what we are looking to do from a capital perspective, from a transportation and transit. Now, the TIP includes not just Bloomington, but also Normal, Transit, IDOT, so it includes a lot of other different communities. In fact, Normal and the town of Normal and McLean County, they don't provide a resolution. We are just as a staff trying to provide this as a touch point for our council to know that that this is occurring. So again, this isn't mandatory for you to do. We're trying to bring this before you just as that making sure you've seen this as part of the process. There is a policy and a technical committee of which the city manager and mayor are part of. There are times they'll proxy that off to various staff, but they're part of those different meetings to include this moving forward. So with that, that's really, we'll leave it up to your questions.
Questions of Mr. Karch. Alderman Milwampwe.
I have a quick question.
I know I grabbed you in the parking lot earlier, but I realized, so the Island Grove, I think it's 2022, year 2022, fiscal year 2022. Island Grove and Stride Drive.
Hmm.
And actually in 2021, there is a project cost of $55,000. Is that for a study, traffic signal installation? Then in 2022, it goes up to 500,000.
So so let's start off with first your question of in 2020, you said, I
It was
don't.
2021.
2021, okay. My apologies.
Studies in 2020, and then the money's in 2021.
There we go. So in 2020, that is where, again, so the C is the construction. So again, E is where we're going to be doing more. That's why it's, again, with under 2021, Stride Drive and Island Grove Road traffic signals, 55,000. That is for more of the design for us to be able to move that project forward. You're going to see then in 2022, that project then for the city of Bloomington is out there for 500,000 for traffic signal installation with the C in that middle column. That's for the construction of it. So the E is for engineering, C is for the construction. It is a little bit confusing. Keep in mind, this hasn't been approved by the council, but these are in the out years. And so this is what's currently in some of that capital improvement plan that's yet to be brought before the council. So my guess is next year when we have the tip, we'll modify it to meet whatever the council approves in the 5-year budget. So for example, traffic signals, there's a few out there. Sometimes we've looked at traffic signals as okay, are we looking at more of those? Are we pulling back from some traffic signals? Where do we land as a city on those? So this is another example of it could change.
Alderwoman Burgess and then Matthew.
I'm just curious how you determine which projects are pulled out and listed separately and which ones are not, because obviously our own capital improvement plan, which is in the draft form, has a lot more detail as to what we're up to. So I'm just curious about this process.
The TIP is a very simplistic process. It does not go into what's called the illustrative projects. In other words, they're unfunded. Our CIP has a whole lot of projects in it, and it has a lot of detail because it includes a lot of projects that we don't have the money for. And it's showing you as a council what all is out there. And so that the difference is that our CIP includes a lot of the different data on when we'd be looking to do different implementations, whereas this is keeping a very high level of just the overall dollar figures. And so that's one of the differences. This is meeting just the federal requirements, and so it doesn't have that same detail that we're trying to give you as a council for our own plan.
Alderman Matthew.
So first, in Boca, I'm sorry, I was actually going to ask the questions about the traffic signals in 2020 and 2021. You were looking at 21, 22. Jim, I was just going to ask, when I was on council 4 years ago, we were looking at traffic signals then, and I swear that I remember the number that we were using for traffic signals was 250,000, and now it appears our number has become 500,000 to put in a traffic signal, and I was just, I know we've had a little bit of inflation in 4 years, but that seems a little bit, twice as good.
Alderman said it's twice as good. That's right.
I was wondering if you could just shed some light, like, why, or where the budget process is of that they've become twice as expensive as they were.
Sure. Actually, whenever I started, they were about 125,000. So now they're 4 times as good as they used to be. So in reality, traffic signals are not consistent. They vary as far as what's existing. Are you adding other infrastructure? Because a lot of times when you do a traffic signal, you have to do an intersection design study. Especially if you're using motor fuel tax funds, you have to do an intersection design study that's done by a traffic engineer, and that will project whether the lanes are configured appropriately, whether you need to add in some and change some of the turning radii and issues like that. So a lot of times, whenever you're looking in the out years, before we get it engineered, we're trying to put a hot dollar figure on it that is more reflective of some anticipated improvements. We don't know. The 500,000 is just the best guess, kind of a placeholder until we get more of the better engineering costs nailed down. It's very difficult before you have an intersection design study that projects out those 20 years as mandated for us to really get a good cost estimate.
Okay, I was just trying to understand that. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Schmidt and Black, and if we're going beyond that, we have to extend our time.
Or I thought it'd be
a-
short. That's okay.
A
That's good.
specific question, in 2018, Jim, there's an item for intersection improvement at Tawanda Barnes and Ireland Grove. Is that the same improvement that the county board had a conversation about? And I thought that the resolution was they thought we wanted it and we thought they wanted it, and so what is this?
That's the same item that's currently in the approved budget. It's in the council approved budget currently. It will come back as any budget item does for your approval, but it isn't looking to be done during this current construction season. It would be looking to be done under the next year's construction season. And my understanding from talking to the county engineer Stokes is that the county they're the ones driving the project, but they're looking at it because of current operational issues, not because of concerns with any developments further to the east. It is really dealing with current southbound right turn issues, and they're seeing if they can work with the Illinois Department of Transportation, IDOT, on making changes to their requirements. Because again, they're falling into those same issues of you have to project that 20 years out, and so they're mandating certain changes to that intersection, which are very costly. So they're looking to see if they have any of their options before they bring it back through their transportation committee and then onto their council, onto their board. And in the same token, the city would pay our portion of that, and the council would be able to take action on it at a later date.
But pursuant to that, if we wanted to kill it, this doesn't oblige us.
Yeah, tonight does not, and just, this tip doesn't bind you to any of these projects. These projects are just descriptive in nature. These are not binding for you. You've approved these in the budget for 2018 and the out years. You haven't approved them yet. And so those will be approved as time comes along.
Okay. Is there a motion then to approve this plan?
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Black. Is there a second?
Second.
Several seconds. Second by Alderwoman Bray. At this point, if there are no more discussions, then if you'll go ahead and vote. Motion carries. Wow, we've had a series of unanimous votes and nobody at public comment. Wow. At this point, we're going to move right along. City manager comments?
No comment, thank you, sir.
Okay. I'll add no comment as well. Alderwoman Schmidt.
I do want to take note of the passing of Jim Brown.
Thank you very much.
Yes. He's
Thank
been such a strong radio voice and newsman for GLT and JBC, and we'll miss him.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Anything else? Alderman Black.
This is our last formal council meeting prior to the Taste of the West, which will be held at the Coliseum this year on June 2nd. So it's at 5 p.m. it starts, and it's going to be bigger than all previous years. I know that I've seen other aldermen there. It's a great event, and I want to remind everybody of that.
Great food. Be there or be square. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman Schmidt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Painter. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We're adjourned.